31st, 1889, 4:07 p.m. A 40-foot wall of water hits Johnstown, Pennsylvania, traveling at 40 miles per hour, 20 million tons, moving faster than a train, carrying entire houses, locomotives, bridges, and thousands of people. Within 10 minutes, 4 square miles of America's largest steel-producing city gone. 2,209 dead, 777 bodies never identified, 900 never found. But here's what they don't tell you. Just 16 days earlier, the Eiffel Tower opened in Paris, showcasing the world's new modern architecture. Johnstown was buried under 30 feet of mud on May 31st, rebuilt in 5 years with entirely new buildings, and they called it progress. Let's start with what Johnstown was before May 31st, 1889. Population, 30,000 people. That's one person dying for every 14 who lived there. But here's what matters. Johnstown was the largest steel-producing city in America, not Pittsburgh. Johnstown, the Cambria Iron Works, founded in the 1850s, was producing more steel than anywhere else in the country. They made steel rails for the Pennsylvania Railroad, steel for bridges, steel for buildings going up across America. By 1889, Johnstown's quality steel had a worldwide reputation. German, Welsh, Scottish, Swedish, Hungarian immigrants had flooded in for work. In just 39 years, the population grew 23 times over, from 1,269 people in 1850 to 30,000 by 1889. Think about that growth rate. Where did they all come from? And more importantly, where did they all live? The city had 36 churches, 20 schools, a library, 2 opera houses, a roller skating rink, a park. These weren't shacks. These were substantial buildings, stone foundations, brick construction, 3, 4, 5 stories high, detailed cornices, ornate window frames, hand-carved stonework, buildings that would take years to construct with period technology. The Pennsylvania Railroad ran through it. The Pennsylvania Mainline Canal, built in 1836, had established Johnstown as a transportation hub decades earlier. That canal system was an engineering marvel. Locks, aqueducts. The Allegheny Portage Railroad with inclined planes that could lift entire canal boats over mountains. 400 miles of connected waterways. Who built that infrastructure? And then, on May 31st, 1889, everything changed. 14 miles upstream from Johnstown sat the South Fork Dam. Built between 1838 and 1853, it was the largest earthen dam in the United States. It created Lake Conemaugh, the largest man-made lake of its time. 2 miles long, 1 mile wide, 60 feet deep, and it was 450 feet above Johnstown. The dam was originally built by the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania to supply water to the Pennsylvania Mainline Canal, designed by civil engineer William Morris, built according to accepted engineering practices of the time. 5 cast iron discharge pipes at its base, each 24 inches in diameter. 2 spillways, 1 main, 1 auxiliary. It was inspected in 1856 by the state engineer. His verdict? Excellent condition. But here's where it gets interesting. When the railroads made the canal system obsolete, Pennsylvania abandoned the dam. It changed hands multiple times, until 1879 when it was purchased by the South Fork Fishing and Hunting Club. The members? Andrew Carnegie, Andrew Mellon, Henry Clay Frick, Philander Knox, 60 of Pittsburgh's wealthiest industrialists, bankers, and attorneys, men who controlled America's steel, banking, and railroad empires. They built cottages, which were really mansions, along the shore, stables, boathouses, a 40-room clubhouse. They held regattas, fished, hunted, partied. This was their private escape, their summer retreat. And they modified the dam. They lowered it by 3 feet to make room for a carriage road across the top. They removed the 5 cast iron discharge pipes. At the base, the pipes designed to safely lower the water level before storms. Why? Because reinstalling them would be expensive. They put screens across the spillway to keep their fish from escaping. These screens, they clogged with debris. The center of the dam sagged from inadequate repairs. Daniel J. Morrell, general manager of Cambria Iron Works, sent his own engineers to inspect the dam years before 1889. They came back with bad news. Morrell shared his concerns with the South Fork Club directly. They essentially told him, "You and your people are in no danger from our enterprise." So Morrell joined the club specifically to push for repairs from the inside. He died in 1885, 4 years before the flood. The repairs never happened. May 28th, 1889. A low-pressure system formed over Nebraska and Kansas. By May 30th, it had reached western Pennsylvania. The U.S. Army Signal Corps estimated 6 to 10 inches of rain fell in 24 hours, the heaviest rainfall event ever recorded in that part of the United States at that time. May 31st, morning. Club President Colonel Elias Unger watched the lake rise 2 feet overnight, an inch every 10 minutes. The water kept rising. Workers tried to dig emergency spillways, tried to remove the fish screens, tried to raise the dam's height with anything they could find. Club engineer John Park knew the truth. Once the water ran over the top of the earthen dam, it would cut through it like a knife. He faced an impossible dilemma. He could cut through the end of the dam where the pressure was less, make it give way slowly, reduce the destructive force. But then how would he prove the dam would have gone anyway? People would only know he was the one who destroyed the dam and flooded the valley. So he did nothing. 3:10 p.m., May 31st, 1889. The dam broke. 20 million tons of water. That's the same volume of water that goes over Niagara Falls in 36 minutes. All of it in 14 miles of narrow valley in 57 minutes. Survivors described it like this. It looked like the hillside moved. It didn't look like water. A moving, boiling black mountain of junk. Pennsylvania Railroad engineer John Hess was asked what it sounded like. We heard the flood coming. We didn't see it, but we heard the noise of it coming. What was the noise like? Like a hurricane, like a roar of thunder. The wave hit South Fork first, then Mineral Point, East Conemaugh, Woodvale. Each town was obliterated. Woodvale, population 1,000, was completely erased. Not a single building left standing. 33 locomotives, each weighing 170,000 pounds, were swept away like toys. Some were carried nearly a mile. Entire houses, churches, factories, bridges, all of it picked up and carried. At 4:07 p.m., the wave hit Johnstown, a wall of water 40 feet high, moving 40 miles per hour. Within 10 minutes, 4 square miles of downtown Johnstown were gone. But here's the critical detail. The flood wave didn't just flow over the ground, it moved in what engineers later described as violent, high-energy loop-de-loops. The bottom of the wave picked up debris and slowed down. The top crashed downward into the ground, quote, crushed or buried almost everything in its path. This is important. The flood didn't just destroy Johnstown, it buried it. The next morning, vast heaps of mud and rubble filling streets where there were still streets up to the third story. Entire blocks of buildings had been razed. Hundreds, alive and dead, were buried beneath the ravaged city. And then it got worse. The Pennsylvania Railroad's Stone Bridge, a massive 7-arch stone structure, stood firm against the flood, built in the 1830s, solid masonry. It had survived every flood before, all the wreckage piled up behind it, 40 feet high, 30 acres. Houses, trees, railroad cars, 50 miles of track, boilers, telephone poles, barbed wire from the destroyed Gautier Wire Works, and 500 to 600 people, some alive, most dead, all tangled in barbed wire, unable to move. 16-year-old Victor Heiser was in his family's barn when he saw his father at a second-story window. His father was frantically gesturing for him to climb to the roof. He scrambled up and saw what his father had seen, a 2-story rumbling mass of debris crashing down the valley toward them. He watched in horror as his home was crushed like an eggshell. His parents disappeared. Victor rode the flood wave downstream, dodging freight cars, dead animals, pieces of houses, until he grabbed onto a 2-story brick house. He survived. Both his parents died. 6 p.m. The oil-soaked debris pile caught fire, burning with all the fury of hell. People trapped in the wreckage screamed for help. The flames consumed them. 80 more. People died in the fire, some still trapped in their own homes. Reverend David Beale and his family survived by reaching the 3rd floor of his house. They managed to walk across the flood wreckage to Alma Hall, about a block away. James Walters, a lawyer, was washed out of his home on Walnut Street, swept onto a floating roof, and then thrown by the force of the water through a window into his own office in Alma Hall. Dr. William Matthews, despite having 2 broken ribs himself, tended to the wounded by the dim light of distant fires. He delivered 2 babies that night. Reverend Beale called it a night of indescribable horrors. June 1st, 1889. Dawn. The waters had receded. An eerie silence hung over the city. Mud everywhere. Buildings buried. Streets gone. The official death toll, 2,209 people. But let's break that down. 99 entire families were completely wiped out. 396 children. 124 women and 198 men were widowed. 98 children were orphaned. 777 victims were never identified. 1 out of every 3 bodies. They're buried together in Johnstown's Grandview Cemetery, in a section called the Plot of the Unknown. 900 bodies were never found. Some bodies turned up as far away as Cincinnati, 100 miles downstream. Some washed up in Steubenville, Ohio. The last body was found in 1911, 22 years later. As everyone had dreaded, disease followed. Typhoid added 40 more lives to the death toll. Emergency morgues were set up. Hospitals overflowed. Johnstown's first call for help, coffins and undertakers. But here's what's interesting. In the early 2000s, more than 120 years after the flood, workers were building a bridge in East Conemaugh. They found a railroad car axle, buried from 1889. It's now on display at the Johnstown Flood Museum. Think about that. 123 years later, they're still finding things buried beneath the city. And here's the quote from the engineering report. In an early geotechnical precaution, survivors and volunteers even had to dig the detritus and muck out of every existing cellar in Johnstown to ensure the integrity of the foundations of future structures. Read that again. They had to dig out every single cellar, not just the streets, not just the first floors, every single cellar, because the city was buried, not just damaged, buried. Now let's talk about timing. May 31st, 1889, the day Johnstown flooded. What else was happening in May 1889? The Paris Exposition Universelle, May 6th through October 31st, 1889. The Eiffel Tower, the world's first major metal structure, was completed March 31st, 1889. It opened to the public on May 15th, 16 days before Johnstown flooded. The entire exposition was a showcase of modern architecture, metal frames, glass, industrial design. The Gallery of Machines, created by Ferdinand Duter and Victor Contamin, was the largest indoor space in the world, a single vault, a nave with an area of 77,000 square meters, 35,000 square meters of glass. They had an exhibit on the history of human dwelling. Architect Charles Garnier, designer of the Paris Opera, created displays showing the progression from primitive stone structures to modern industrial buildings, prehistoric, historic, and primitive contemporaries, meaning African and island peoples. The message was clear. Stone and brick were the past, metal and glass were the future. So on May 31st, 1889, while 32 million people were visiting Paris to see the future of architecture, Johnstown, America's largest steel-producing city, was being buried under 40 feet of water and mud. And then Johnstown was rebuilt in 5 years with entirely new architecture. Gone were the ornate Victorian stone buildings. In came modern steel frame construction. Industrial design, simple, efficient, modern. By 1910, just 21 years later, the population had doubled to 60,000 people. Steel production had quadrupled. And who paid for the rebuilding? Andrew Carnegie donated a library. Henry Clay Frick, Andrew Mellon, the same men whose club owned the dam, the same men whose modifications caused the flood, the same men who ignored Daniel Morell's warnings. Were they held responsible? No, they called it an act of God. And every lawsuit failed. Historian David McCullough wrote, "Not a nickel was ever collected through damage suits from the South Fork Fishing and Hunting Club or from any of its members." But here's the most interesting part. On June 5th, 1889, just 5 days after the flood, the American Society of Civil Engineers appointed a committee to investigate, led by James B. Francis, a founding member and former president of the ASCE, a hydraulic engineer known for his work on flood control and dam construction. They visited the dam site, reviewed the original engineering design, interviewed eyewitnesses, commissioned a topographic survey, performed hydrologic calculations. They completed their report on January 15th, 1890. And then they sealed it. The report was not shared with other ASCE members or the public. Why? What was in that report? It wasn't until 2016, 127 years later, that a hydraulic analysis proved the truth. The changes made by the South Fork Fishing and Hunting Club severely reduced the dam's ability to withstand storms. Lowering the dam by 3 feet cut its safe discharge capacity in half. Removing the discharge pipes eliminated controlled release. The auxiliary spillway on the western abutment, which could have saved everything, was blocked. They knew, they covered it up, and they rebuilt Johnstown the way they wanted it. So let's ask the question, what's actually buried underneath Johnstown? We know that in the 2000s, 120 years later, they were still finding buried railroad equipment. We know survivors described mud up to the 3rd story. We know they had to dig out every single cellar before rebuilding. Before the flood, Johnstown had 36 churches, 20 schools, 2 opera houses, a library, a roller skating rink, ornate Victorian buildings, stone construction, detailed craftsmanship, multi-story stone buildings with elaborate cornices, hand-carved window frames, Gothic arches, detailed brickwork. After the flood, modern industrial architecture, Carnegie's library, new steel frame buildings, everything different, And remember, the population grew from 1,269 people in 1850 to 30,000 by 1889. That's 23 times in 39 years. All those immigrants flooding in to work the steel mills. But here's the question. What was there before 1850? The Pennsylvania Main Line Canal was built starting in 1836. The South Fork Dam was built starting in 1838. 15 years to complete the dam. Who built the infrastructure that allowed all of this? The canal system with its locks and aqueducts. The Allegheny Portage Railroad with inclined planes. The dam, the largest earthen dam in America at the time. Look at the precision, the scale, the engineering. Unless the infrastructure was already there. Look at the buildings. Stone construction, multiple stories, ornate details, Gothic arches, detailed cornices, carved stonework. The same architectural features found across Old World cities. May 31st, 1889, Johnstown buried. World's Fair showcasing new architecture happening at the same time. 5 years to rebuild. Population doubled by 1910. Steel production quadrupled. Railroad equipment still being found 120 years later. 777 people never identified. 900 never found. What if they weren't just victims? What if they were evidence? What was in that report that had to be sealed for 127 years? Why did the richest men in America own a fishing club dam 14 miles above the country's largest steel-producing city? Why did they modify it in ways that ensured it would fail? Why did they lower it by 3 feet, cutting discharge capacity in half? Why did they remove the safety pipes? Why did they block the spillways with fish screens? And why did they wait until 3:10 p.m. on May 31st to let it fail? John Park, the club engineer, watched the water rising all morning. He knew it would fail. He could have cut through the dam early, released the water slowly, but he chose not to, because people would blame him. And what's still buried 30 feet underneath modern Johnstown? What happens when they dig deeper than railroad axles? What foundations are still down there? What architecture? What evidence? Today, the Johnstown Flood Museum preserves the official story. The plot of the unknown remembers the 777 unidentified dead. The National Park Service maintains the South Fork Dam site, and construction crews keep finding artifacts buried beneath the city. May 31st, 1889, 2,209 dead, 4 square miles destroyed, buried under 30 feet of mud, 16 days after the Eiffel Tower opened, during the World's Fair showcasing modern architecture. Rebuilt in 5 years with entirely new buildings, population doubled by 1910, steel production quadrupled, no legal consequences for the men who owned the dam, an investigation sealed for 127 years, until 2016, when science proved they caused it. Maybe it was just a flood. Maybe it was just tragic timing. Maybe those 777 unidentified bodies and 900 missing people were just victims of a natural disaster. Maybe all those cellars full of mud were just damage control, or maybe they buried more than just a city. They buried the evidence.